So basically, the idea is that Lewis has been fighting what I think at times for him has felt like a frustrating, pointless, losing battle for right to repair. And it is an important battle. And
Absolutely.
honestly, like he has been maybe not the biggest, but certainly one of the most visible opponents of companies just for no, I don't want to say no reason because there is a reason. I wish I had a soundboard with a ka-ching noise sound
Yeah.
effect, you know, because
Yeah.
that's what I'd be hitting right now. There's absolutely a reason that they make their devices difficult to repair, or in some cases impossible, or at least impossible for anyone but themselves to repair. But it's not a consumer friendly reason. And for anyone with an ounce of sense, anyone who's in the law, who's a lawmaker who is looking at this request and thinking, yeah, we should really be protecting the corporation's interests here. It doesn't hold water. Like, it is very obvious that anyone who is against right to repair just plain does not care about their constituents and just plain does not care about their users. And finally, just plain does not care about the
Hi,
environment.
Lewis.
That's one
I
of the
was
most
told by
frustrating. Oops. That's one of the most frustrating things about certain companies, some fruit based ones in particular, where they will, talk so much about how green this is or how recycled this hunk of aluminum is or whatever else. And then they will go and design, like the AirPods Pros are a perfect example of a device that did not need to be disposable, but is because go yourself. That's it.
Why
Go
is that? Is it the
yourself
battery
and
replacement
the
or
environment. That's it.
why though? Is it because of battery replacement or like what's the limiting factor there?
It's very, very difficult to replace the battery. And because the batteries are so small, so something a lot of people don't understand about lithium batteries is that there are various factors that affect how many charge cycles they can survive. And one of the big ones is actually how big the battery is. The larger the capacity of the battery, the less likely you are to need to charge it all the way up and discharge it all the way down. And the longer that will take, which maybe, okay, won't make it last for more cycles, but it will certainly give it a much longer usable lifetime. So for example, if you have a phone that has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which when you get it is good for a day and a half or a day and 3/4, you will not wear out that battery so quickly because every day you will not completely discharge it. And B, you will actually continue to be able to use that device for a full day many, many years into the future because it had sort of excess battery capacity in the first place. Well, AirPods are really terrible for a number of reasons. Number one is that the battery capacity is extremely low. So that means that you're very likely to completely drain them and completely charge them constantly. Another problem is that because they don't actually last for that long, they last for, well, on the Pros, I think it's like 4 hours with active noise cancellation or something like that. So as soon as you've lost 25% or 30, 40, 50% of your capacity, they're kind of not that usable. Like when you can't even watch, a movie on the plane, you're not going to keep them, right? They're garbage at that point. And then problem number 3 is that they're intended to be stored in a charging case that charges them up. One of the most damaging things that you can do to a lithium battery is keep it at either its fully discharged state or its completely charged state. So there's all these problems that are inherent to the design. And then the very worst thing about them is that not only were they not designed with easy battery replacement in mind, it feels like and seems like they were designed with difficult battery replacement in mind. Now, I actually just became aware of this really cool service that I think launched fairly recently. AirPods battery replacement company. Who are these guys called? Blah, 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 blah. The employee said, bloody hell. Can't find it right now. Darn it. Where are they? Where are they? I thought they were AirPod autopsy. Oh man, this is a really long article that I'm pretty sure just leads to a link to this company that that replaces AirPods batteries for you. So basically, what they do is you send in your old ones, and they
People are
don't send
saying
them
pod
back.
swap.
Yeah, they refurbish them for someone else later, and they send you refurbished ones that they have already refurbished that someone else sent. I unfortunately can't find it right now, which is really frustrating. The pod swap. Yeah, that's the one. Super cool. I have no idea if these are good people or if they just steal your money or whatever. I'm not endorsing them in any way. I've not actually used their service or anything like that, but I am super excited about what they're doing because for whatever reason, it's like a couple of people that just identified a problem and decided to solve it. And for whatever reason, Apple, the multi-billions and billions and billions of dollar company, couldn't do it. But these guys could. So this is a perfect example of how, in spite of Apple's best efforts to make repairing your device not just difficult, but actually impossible, people care about this stuff. And it's really frustrating that it's being locked down and that is being allowed legally. Because, yeah, sure, you might say, yeah, and the free market will regulate itself. But I think what we've learned is that it doesn't, because the powerful players can just either ignore or buy out or otherwise outcompete, sometimes in unfair or illegal ways, without it ever really being enforced, their smaller competition. So no, it does actually need to be dealt with on a legislative level. And what was one of the other really frustrating ones that I went through lately? Right. Oh man, my in-laws Model Y. So Tesla has a really, frankly, crappy attitude towards the right of individuals to repair their vehicles. And one of the problems is that Tesla just doesn't have replacement parts. So when we needed to get a windshield, because like rock hit the windshield, it happens. So when we needed to get a windshield replacement, we discovered that there were only, I think it was 2 or 3 places in the entire lower mainland that did Tesla windshields. And then when it got scratched, I think there were 2 paint shops that were willing to do Tesla paint because there's just no access to these parts. And so you might think to yourself like, oh, the market will regulate itself if Tesla's competition has an easy and economical way to get a replacement windshield or to get the paint repaired on your vehicle, then surely they will have to do that in order to compete. But that's not actually the case at all. So having it just written into law that you have to make parts available to consumers is it's just plain necessary. So none of this, I think, even necessarily has a ton to do with the main arguments that Lewis is making about it. He's looking at much bigger picture things like...
Hi, Lewis.
Oh,
I was
shoot,
told...
I accidentally clicked that link again. He's looking at much bigger picture things like farm equipment, for example, medical equipment, military equipment. I mean, imagine for a second how corrupt legislators would have to be to not listen to someone and vote against their own budgetary bloat because they are not authorized or cannot get parts to repair their own equipment that they requisition for their own stupid military. Imagine that. You don't have to, because all you need to do is watch yourself some C-SPAN. So it's incredibly frustrating. This is a really important campaign. I was talking to him a little while ago and he seemed kind of down about this battle, but hey, maybe this is the next stage. He's trying to raise $6 million. I don't know exactly why that number is. I only became aware of this video shortly before the show, so I haven't actually watched it yet, but I think it has something to do with making it a direct ballot initiative rather than waiting around for politicians to decide that this is a priority, which they won't, because, well, I can't think of a reason. JK,
So
money.
I haven't fully dove into it, but there is also a long and detailed description on the GoFundMe that, first of all, denotes something actually pretty interesting that says that you can go ahead and add $100,000 to the total because there was a direct wire transfer from somebody of $100,000. So it bypassed the, I think GoFundMe has a cut. I could be wrong. So it bypasses that, which is pretty cool. And you can throw that on top. So he's already at 324,000. Am I right? Yeah, 324,500, which is pretty freaking cool. Also, if you expand the README a little bit, I'm sure he has better details on this somewhere, but it says, I've reached out to the firm that was able to get a direct ballot initiative passed in MA for automotive right to repair, that they were very helpful and explained how and why it would cost 5 to 20 million to have a chance at success. I think he goes into it more there, but so he has details.
All right, so guys, do go check that out. I posted links in the video description. Oh, here we go. Lewis is actually in the chat. Sup, Lewis? L. Ekman had a good piece in the New York Times, apparently, on the Marine Corps. Oh, man, that's the kind of stuff that's just like your blatant, obvious corruption that you just kind of, you can't figure out. I don't know. I get it. There's a lot of sort of single issue voters out there, whether it's one way or the other, whether it's like, let's take something super controversial like gun laws, for example, or abortion rights for another example. I get it, guys. You're single issue voters and you see it as this binary choice. There's this person that you perceive as doing it your way, and there's this person that you perceive as doing it the other way. But that's like the whole reason that within the two-party system, or, in our case, three-party system, that's the whole reason for things like, leadership races or primaries. You're supposed to weed out the people that do not care about you at all. You're supposed to turn these things where they demonstrate so obviously and so clearly that they don't care about you at all, and you're supposed to get them out of office. You're supposed to make it impossible for them to win so that someone who supports ideas that are closer to what you believe can still be elected, but they don't have to be a complete piece of garbage. That's how it's supposed to work. There's
someone in the chat said the right to repair is okay, but not everyone needs to try and repair stuff.
That has nothing to do with right to repair at all.
Yeah, not even remotely.
It's a right.
I would, and that also means that there's a right for you to be able to go to someone to repair your thing, to make it so that it's repairable at all. It's not necessarily for you to do. I would highly suggest that you, having posted that, check out the GoFundMe, and whether you're going to donate or not, there's a lot of good details in the description under it. So jump over there and check it out.
Oh man, it's the right. Think of it more like the right for it to be repaired. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Grant says parts availability is one thing, but companies should not be forced to share their software. Well, okay, so that's a really, really cool conversation that we can not get into fully right now, but we can at least get into a little bit. Okay, so parts availability is one thing, and it should be absolutely available. But Grant says companies should not be forced to share their software. Okay, so that's a good point. Like if I'm Apple, I don't necessarily want to share my special software that could allow people to reverse engineer iOS and compete with me, say, for example. But if we're talking about the kind of software that you need, say, for example, to pair a screen or a battery to the motherboard of the phone, I would make the argument that the creation of that software in the first place should have been illegal, and that software shouldn't exist, and therefore it's a non-issue now. You don't have to share it
if you make it public,
Or you can make it public. Sure.
Privatization of that, the non-openness of that software should be,
It's about, so Lewis said it really well here. Right to repair is about having the right or the freedom to do it. It's not about forcing you to repair your stuff. He says, I wouldn't fix my own microwave since I'd probably give my entire household cancer. Fair point. People should stick to what they know, but at least Lewis would have the option to take his microwave to someone. I mean, if they're in New York, because they got to pay for the rent of their unreasonable building that they operate their business out of, maybe it would cost more than a new microwave anyway, but at least he'd have a choice, right? He'd have the option.
Yeah.
So there's still people super chatting right now, when what you guys should really be doing is you should be over on the GoFundMe and you should be demonstrating that you care about right to repair. Because, you know, even if he doesn't get the full 6 million, I'd like to think that if enough people get behind this, some momentum can be started, and it can, I mean, some progress is better than what we have right now, guys.
And it's possible that like that $100,000 donation that came through, it's possible that if enough of a splash is made and enough money is raised, that various repair companies that would be interested in this possibly going through could start getting behind it, which could be pretty huge.
Yeah.